provided the railroad would construct where the Dangberg family told it to go.
Hap was just 4 years old when his father came home with important news.
Well, he was promoted to the station master at Minden, and he came home and said, "We're moving to Minden."
And if I remember correctly, the railroad company provided a boxcar for your family to transport all of your household goods.
Yes.
Here we are in downtown Minden. So I guess there's a lot more traffic than there used to be, and besides that, the highway, US 395, to our left here is about 2.5 times as wide as it was when your dad was station agent.
Oh yes, easily. And this used to be the depot right here. It was a red depot and trimmed in white. It was a beautiful building, and it furnished necessary place to store all kinds of incoming material.
I've got here David Myrick's Railroads of Nevada, published by the University of Nevada Press.
I have a copy of it. Yeah, that's a good book. This was normally number 26 was parked out there like that, and we lived behind there, and you notice that I had the 2 railroad tracks that I crossed over, and I was kidded about, I was the only kid in town that lived on the wrong side of the street, along the side of the railroad, and I got back at him by saying, yeah, but I'm the only one that gets to ride around with the crew while they park the different cars out here. So I kind of come out even on it.
Here we've got a photograph of your old home, I believe. Here's the Minden Depot.
Yes.
And across the 2 railroad tracks, there's a stand of Lombardy poplars.
Yes.
And what was in among those poplars?
Well, that was the residence that we moved into when we first arrived here. Well, it was right out there, just beyond where that street is. We didn't have all that traffic at that time, but it was just out there in that area. And the interesting thing about it is that he had never been here, but he had accepted the job. But when we got here, he opened the door. It was all done in the ceiling, the walls were all done in a red velour.
Oh my.
And well, it was a shock to him and a shock to my mother. She took one look and she says, "Walt Fisher, I am not going to stay here." She says, "You just gonna have to do something else." She says, I'm leaving. He says, "Cap," that was my nickname with him. "Cap," he said, "take your sister and walk down to the bulk plant. And then," he says, "turn around and come back." And he says, "Walk slowly." And he says, "Give me a chance to talk to your mother." And so by the time that we got back, why, he said, "I will remove all the red, everything, and she can pick the wallpaper, and I will," then she's agreed to stay on that condition, but he says, "I have to do the job." And so he said, "Do you understand?" And I said, "Yes, I do understand, Dad."
Hap's father became Minden freight and passenger agent on October 1st, 1924, with Hap's mother able to oversee all the activity from her door. 2 tracks in front of the house gave operating flexibility for switching cars.
After arriving at Minden, the train backs up to go around the Y. There was no turntable at Minden to turn the engines. Here, look at that snow on the Sierra Nevada mountains on this day.
At that time, up to 3 trains a day served Valley customers, bringing in livestock, sheep, cattle, pigs, even goats, as well as passengers, farm machinery, new automobiles, petroleum products, and freight. Trains out of Carson Valley hauled fattened livestock and a range of produce.
We had a regular inspection station that we checked all the potatoes before they went out, and we shipped lots and lots of potatoes. The Dangberg Company shipped out potatoes. Morris Max shipped out potatoes, and we did other crops that we even shipped carrots and cabbage and things of that nature. In other words, we could do quite a nice table with the products that we had here. And we had all kinds of opportunities to show the world what was here. And then not long after that, we began shipping butter that went to San Francisco and became the choice of tables in San Francisco. This is the eggs and poultry, and they actually were marketing everything that we were raising in the community.
Perhaps quite a bit of wheat was raised here in the valley, isn't that so?
Yes, in fact, at one time they had the finest flour that took prizes all over the place. And then we also had we had the flour milling company, but we also had wool storage, so that we did both of them together. This was added a little later in the milling process, when they found out that they needed to have a storage place for grain that wasn't out in the farmer's backyard.
So the depot was near here, so when people got off the train, where did they go?
Well, they went across the street to the Minden Inn.
Okay.
Or they went over to the beer garden.
And the Minden Inn is that pale brick structure that's behind us?
Yes, it's...
Can you tell us a little about the Minden Inn?
The Minden Inn
was
very significant. It was a gathering place for everybody that came along. We went there for our junior and senior proms as high school students. We went there for Christmas decorations, for Christmas enjoyment. It was a very prominent thing in the life of Carson Valley.
Now, can you tell me about this building? This looks like a railroad structure, this little shed.
Yes, this used to sit down as for the section crew. They stored their tools in there. And it was moved up here at some time, I don't know when, but we used to have just below the sheep camp, we used to have a place where the section hands took their vehicle off the rails and did all their work out of there.
And the section hands, those were the men who maintained the track.
That's correct, yes. They were the Gandhi dancers.
Hap recalls that on weekdays around 9 a.m., the Minden V&T depot became the local meeting place. It was warm in winter, shady in the hot summer, and had a dice cup for games to pass the time while waiting for trains. The Minden depot was the informal communication hub of this part of Nevada and California.
It brought the local news,
right?
The newspapers. There wasn't any news. There was very little communication in those days. The only thing we had was a telegraph line. And on top of it, we had to have some place for people to congregate and get together. And so we had somewhere around 20 to 25 people that would hear the train whistle in Stewart, and they'd come down and we'd all get together, and anybody that really